Yeah, Sarita, next slide. Okay, so good morning, everyone, and good evening if somebody has joined from US. So let me introduce myself. My name is Mukund. I am part of IT applications operations, working in the India region, predominantly looking after the application tech stack, which includes the enterprise databases, ERPs, ETLs, and not but not least, that is the identity and access management piece, right? So I've been in VMware for close to 9 years and having industry experience of 24 years. And apart from this, you can say the application operations tech stack, we have been also managing a good amount of you can say private clouds, and I have been also instrumental in going and setting up the you can say private cloud for the largest bank in India. So with this, let me hand over to Sarita for her quick introduction. Sarita, go ahead.
Thank you, Mukund. Hi, everyone. This is Sarita. I am a senior manager at VMware IT. I am responsible for the 24/7 production support as well as project delivery in the SAP basis, security, and the BI space. I have led a number of implementations in SAP, specifically the SAP implementation on vSphere, and we will be talking more about that as we go along. Over to you, Mohammed, to introduce
Thank you, Sarita. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. So I'm Mohammed Rafiq Kajamuddin, working as a lead cloud infrastructure administrator. So my team is responsible to manage the background cloud infrastructure, and many of the business critical applications for VMware, like my VMware, all are hosted in our infrastructure, and it's managed by our team. I think let's get started. Over to you, Mukund.
Okay, thank you, Sarita and Mohammed. So, quick agenda, right? So we will have an IT overview in a couple of slides, and then we will look at the SAP HANA journey that we started from 2015 till now, what all we have done and what all our achievements that we have done. We'll later on look at the scale out architecture of the SAP HANA. And later on, we'll also see the high availability and the disaster recovery solutions that we have implemented and how they are utilized in VMware IT. Subsequently, we'll look at the best practices, how to run SAP on vSphere. And the last but not least, that is the benefits and key takeaways. So I request all of you to stay tuned till the point number 6, right? That's the most important, you can say part of this presentation, wherein you will be able to, you can say, look at the gist of all this presentation and what are the benefits and key takeaways. And later on, we will have a quick 10 minutes Q&A at the end of the session. Go ahead, Sarita. Okay, so IT landscape or overview of the infrastructure that we have, right? So on your screen, you will see quite a good amount of numbers over here, and that depicts the scale of operation that we have in VMware, right? I will not go through all the numbers, but the key numbers I would like to highlight here, right? So one is like a number of offices that we have, right? We have close to 125 offices worldwide. And when it comes to, you can say, data centers, we have 8 data centers across the globe. And predominantly, we use 2 data centers for the production, you can say, workloads and applications. Coming back to the storage, we have close to 19 petabyte of vSAN raw storage, which is available for all our, you can say, R&D as well as, you can say, the corporate and financial applications. Coming to micro-segmentation, as all of you know, right, NSX micro-segmentation secures your applications and workloads on a particular application level. So we'll also have a quick look at how we have implemented this for SAP also, right? Close to 60 applications are micro-segmented as of now, so that we can prevent any, you can say, hacking of our applications, even though somebody has come to our systems. The last but not least is this 18 applications which are also put on VMC at AWS, that is the public cloud of VMware, which is available for all the customers of VMware. Seamlessly, you can migrate your workloads from the on-prem private cloud to the public cloud, which is available at VMC at AWS. And how we are utilizing this as the DR site for all our 18 plus applications, and SAP being one of them. So we will have a detailed study of that aspect as well. So with this, let's go to the next one. Sorry. Okay, so this is the typical tech stack that you will see in any IT shop, basically starting from databases and ERPs, ETLs, and till your identity and access management. So this typical tech stack is used by your developers to develop the internal and external facing applications. And of course, we have a quite a good amount of mix and match of open source, best of open source and best of proprietary, I can say, softwares which are available in the market. And I have not listed the name of the products here, but would like to go through the scale of operations that we have in the IT application operations level, right? So we have close to 10 type of database engines, right? Starting from the world's famous database till the latest and greatest open source softwares or databases that we have. And when it comes to, you can say, scale, we have close to 300 plus production databases. We have 100 plus TB of database size in production itself, right? I'm not talking about the, I can say, dev test, UATs, LTs, or any other stage environments. So purely on the, you can say, production side. On ERP side, we have SAP. Of course, we are going to discuss about SAP, and just want to also highlight it on the database side. We have SAP HANA, which is also used for online as well as the ETL side. On financial side and financial applications, we have latest and greatest applications which are there for consolidation and reporting. All our revenue, that is $11+ billion revenue, is flowing through these ERPs. When it comes to ETL, we have close to 66,000 jobs which runs on a day on production, right? That's the huge scale that we have. In terms of middleware, we have close to 300 plus production APIs and 350 plus integrations, which integrate all our internal applications to give a seamless, you can say, data to all our internal and external customers, right? When it comes to cloud native applications and tenant operations, we have what you can say VMware's own the TAS platform and TKG platform, which is heavily used by our developers to host the internal and external applications, which has almost like 100 plus microservices, 200 plus you can say instances of the PCF, or we call it as the TAS, right? Internal and external applications, we have 30 plus web services and internal application. And the last but not least, when it comes to identity and access management, all these 21 plus million, right, my VMware and CSP customers and prospects are managed in the IT applications. So all this tech stack, which you can see on this screen, is 100% virtualized. So not a single, you can say, software which is behind this tech stack is running on physical server. These are all virtualized and running on vSphere, right? So this is the key takeaway that I want to give on this slide. Go ahead, Sarita. So with this, I want to hand over to Sarita. She will take it forward, and Mohammed. So they will go through all the details about SAP journey and how we have achieved availability and disaster recovery. So back to you, Sarita.
Thank you, Mukund. And before we embark on the SAP HANA journey at VMware, let me just take a step back and give you a feel of why we went for this implementation in the first place. So the reason why we decided to go for a complete new ERP or a greenfield implementation of SAP HANA was threefold. The first was, in our existing ERP, we had a lot of customizations, and we wanted to have a solution that will allow us to easily scale up. And in our existing ERP, we were not able to do that. And as VMware scaled up as a company, we really wanted a solution that will allow us to scale up without all the customizations that we had in the ERP. So that was reason number one. Now, secondly, the BI reporting at that point in time had a 12-hour lag. So we wanted to ensure that we enable our business with a choice of real-time reporting so that we can empower them to make business critical decisions. The third reason was that we had a lot of manual controls before SAP, and we wanted to ensure that we go for automated controls so that we are able to ensure error-free compliance. So with these three main reasons, we embarked on a greenfield implementation of SAP. And you can see our journey started in August 2015. The first implementation that we had, we called it Ascent R1. That went live in May 2016. Initially, when we went live with SAP, we had the backend as Oracle. However, within 3 months, we gained the confidence and we were able to do a migration from Oracle to HANA. So you can see in August 2016, we have migrated our main components, which is ECC, PO, and Solvent onto HANA. And then in March 2017, we went on to do our BI reporting, which is the EDW HANA. That is our primary data warehouse, the enterprise data warehouse, which we put on HANA. And that went live in March 2017. Over time, we have introduced many different projects. We have introduced more and more SAP products into our HANA or SAP landscape. You can see the archiving project went live in June 2018. The BRIM, which is the billing release management primarily for our SaaS orders, that started in November 2018 and we went live after that in June 2019. Midway, we also started our ambitious upgrades to S4 HANA. And with BRIM, we introduced 3 new products from SAP, the CRM, CK, as well as CM. And we went live with SAP HANA on S4 HANA on August 2019. And then we had a Vesper Go Live, which is for our new acquisition that we went live with, having those products also into SAP for the orders, etc. in June 2020. And very recently, about 3 weeks ago, we went live with SAP 2020. So currently we are on the SAP 2020 version, which we went live with in March 2021. Look at these timelines, you will see that every project in the past 5 years that we have completed, we have taken about 3 to 6 months and maximum of 9 months. So you might have a question that probably, the landscape was small or we didn't do much really. So let me give you a briefing on the exact scope of the project. I'll start with the first project that we talked about. We have some metrics for the first project here, which is the first greenfield implementation of SAP R1. You can see the technical metrics here. About 450 VMs across our landscapes, 2 physical data centers. One is in the non-prod and another is the pre-prod and the production. Then we have 5 landscapes, which is the dev, QA, UAT, pre-production, and the production instance. Over and above that, we also have a disaster recovery site and sandbox. So you can see the hardware metrics, about 1700 plus test cases executed and 150 rise of objects, as we call them in SAP. And this gives you a briefing of the business metrics. We've conducted about 70 plus design workshops and took over 300 plus business design decisions and 180 business process procedures. So this pretty much gives you a scale of the first project that we were running. And this slide gives you a bird's eye view of our entire landscape or the SAP deployment at VMware. I'll start with the user experience first. So whenever we are going into any of these SAP products, and you can see in this landscape, we have a lot of them, you need not get into each and every application. There is a single interface, which is Workspace ONE. So by using VMware's Workspace ONE, we provide a single sign-on or a unified interface to get into any of these applications. That is definitely a much better user experience than remembering about 15 or 20 passwords, right? And then we also provide another user experience, which is the desktop view. So we use the VMware's Horizon View to install or have the SAP GUI, which is pre-installed. So once you start using the view, you can directly log into SAP GUI and launch the application of your choice. So this is how you will enter into the SAP applications. Now coming to the enterprise applications or the chief applications that we have in SAP, as we mentioned earlier also, the SAP ECC, which is currently the S4 HANA version of SAP 2020 right now. And then we have MDG, we have CRM, we have convergent charging, convergent mediation. So these are the core SAP systems that we have. All of them are the HANA systems at the backend. And then we have the supporting systems, which is the Vertex. We have the gateway, which is the Fiori system that we are using. For the data integration and delivery, we have process orchestration, we have the ODS. And for the landscape transformation, we have the SLTS. And for the application lifecycle management, I would talk about the solution manager. The solution manager we are using twofold. One is for all the change release management. So any deployments that go into any of these SAP applications, we are doing it through Solman using the tool of Charm. We are also using Solman for our monitoring purposes. So all the monitoring, the database as well as the application monitoring can be done through Solman. So that is for the life cycle management. And even for the replication, we are using SLT. For the governance, risk and compliance, we are using GRC primarily for the process control and even access control. That is also on HANA. So that's a central provisioning, deprovisioning space that we have. And for the archiving or the content management, we are using OpenText. And for the document services, ADS. For BI reporting, we have a native HANA box and we use the BobJ on top of it for reporting purposes. Over and above that, we have a dedicated data warehouse, which is here. So in this slide, you can see our complex architecture for the enterprise data warehouse. This is the single data warehouse that is being used for the entire IT landscape, where you have not just the SAP sources, but even the non-SAP sources which feed into this system. As you can see, it has a master and worker nodes with a HANA shared across on NAS storage. And this gives you a real-time load, which we use either SAP SDI or SLT. And batch loads as well. We have scheduled loads which come into or feed into this system. For the reporting purposes, we primarily use BobJ. This diagram gives you a logical view of this data warehouse architecture that we spoke about right now. As you can see in the bottom, there is the source system. So about 50-55 source systems that we have, not just SAP, as you can see here. It is a lot of non-SAP systems also will feed into the DB platform. So in our DB platform, for the hot and warm, we are using the EDW or the Enterprise Data Warehouse, which is on the 5-node HANA cluster that we showed previously. And for the warm and cold, we are also using Hadoop. And for the reporting or analytics layer, we have the data as a service through the Access Engine in HANA. For the reporting and analytics, we are primarily using BobJ. And for the visualization, we are using Tableau. For the hardware diversification, I will give it over to Mohammed. Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Sarita. So when it comes to SAP hardware choice, so we have an option to diversify the SAP implementation across multiple hardwares. So when we start with S4 HANA, we went with an HP hardwares, and EDW, which is on Dell, and BRIM, which is on like a recent implementation. We went with an hyper-converged environment. So initially when we started, so we went with an HP servers for S4 HANA. So it will be 6-node vSphere clusters and 3 terabyte of memory, which is recently upgraded, and we migrated to the latest hardware as part of our NSXV to NSXT migration. So this is one of the security requirement, and also our entire organization is moving towards the latest NSXT platform. So as part of that, we upgraded the hardware as well, so which was like 3 terabyte of memory. But when we started it, we started with 1.5 terabyte of memory for S4 HANA and EDW as well. And if you see the storage choice for S4 HANA, it's not only on the hardware diversification, also from the storage perspective. For S4 HANA and EDW, we have a flash-based SAN-based storage, which is XTMIO. It's completely flash-based storage. But when it comes to BRIM on the hyper-converged environment, so we went with an vSAN, all-flash vSAN clusters. And also, during the recent implementation, we are going with 25 gig network adapter cards for better performance. And also, when it comes to BRIM, so you can see a mixed match of network adapter, like 2 into 10 gig and 2 into 25 gig. That is like the 2 into 10 gig will be used for the management traffic, and this 25 gig adapters will be used for the virtual machine and on the NSXT based platform. And also, apart from this hardware, and other key important task on SAP implementation is achieving a disaster recovery. So this is one of the key goal for VMware IT to perform a disaster recovery of any critical production workloads, like every quarter. So how we do is like we run the workloads over the weekend, and we validate all the applications and production applications on over the DR site, and we validate it and it runs a real workload on the production. So basically the process flow is like we are using VMware Site Recovery Manager to automate our DR workflow. So Site Recovery Manager is a DR orchestrator and automation tool which helps us to like automate a lot of our DR workflows in a single click. So when we initiate the failover, basically the virtual machine in the production site will shut down, and it will start up in the DR location. So once it is there, and our application and business team perform a validation of SAP systems on the DR site. So once the validation and everything is completed, so as I said, like our workload will be running on the DR site over the weekend, then we'll fail back to the protected site after the weekend actually. So this is a repeated process. This is a key goal of VMware IT to achieve the disaster recovery every quarter of any business critical application. This also gives us a confidence because like our infrastructure is going, we are adding a lot of software and components, like very frequently, right? So this gives us an opportunity to validate and prepare whether our recovery, plan is up to date, and we are up to date with the infrastructure growth as well. It also gives a lot of confidence to face any disaster recovery situations. And when it comes to SAP, we have a mixed match of like infra level DR and app level DR to further improve the RTO of the applications. So I'll hand over to Sarita to talk about the application level DR components. Over to you, Sarita.
Thank you. Thanks, Mohammed. So as Mohammed said, we primarily used to use SRM initially when we started off with the SAP projects, and we were using SRM, and we were quite happy with SRM because that definitely gave us the ease of use, I would say, because it is a one-click or nearly one-click DR that we were doing. However, as the systems became more and more complex, and we had a requirement for having a much shorter RTO, specifically for the BRIM systems, when we started introducing the BRIM systems. For that, we decided that a combination of application level DR as well as using Site Recovery Manager is going to give us a much shorter RTO. So this diagram that you see here on the screen gives you a bird's eye view of how we are doing the combination or the hybrid DR that we are currently doing in BRIM systems. So as you can see, it is the GTM on a regular day, the GTM would be processing requests only to the primary side, and that's how the load balancer and further on down. But in case of a DR, it can switch over to the DR side load balancer. Now at the application level, we have a primary application server, which is housing the ASCS, and that is the single point of failure. So in the primary site itself, we have a failover of FTV. It is protected by VMFT. However, for that we have the SRM and the storage replication for replicating to the DR site. Now for the other application servers, we are having a constant NAS replication, and that has got a mirror in the DR site. So those are the separate servers which are there in the DR site, and that is an application level failover that will happen when there is an actual DR shift. At the HANA level, we have two sets of replications. One is at the primary DR site itself. There is a synchronous replication from the HANA primary to the secondary. So any failure in the primary HANA within the same site, we can always do a DR into the HANA secondary in the same site. However, if there is a complete breakdown of the primary site and we have to move to the DR site, we have the asynchronous replication to the DR site SAP HANA, and that is when we can do a takeover of HANA. That is again at the HANA level or the application level. So by using this combination, we are able to achieve a much shorter RTO. And a little more detail on the disaster recovery test. So most companies would have a test recovery that they do. At VMware, we do an actual DR test every quarter. So what it means is we are taking our production workloads, moving it out to our DR site. We are running the production workload in the disaster recovery site for about 20 hours. And during these 20 hours, it is business as usual, because at the end of the day, apart from the downtime that we take to switch from the primary to the DR servers, the business would not even come to know whether we are running in the primary site or the DR site. And that is something which we do every quarter. And once we have failed back, we will be running it as usual in the production site. So this is an exercise that we perform every quarter. You can see the failover and failback time for EDW HANA, which is about 30 minutes. And EDW HANA is something which we are using only SRM for. And along with that, we utilize this time to perform the OS maintenance activity on the primary servers. So when the production is running on the DR side, first what we do is we will fail over as part of the DR activity from the production primary site to the DR site. So the production servers are running on the DR site, and we utilize this time to do whatever patching, maintenance, OS level maintenance that we need on the primary servers in the primary site, so that we are able to provide our business with way more availability and also being up to date. So this is a view of our day two operations. As you can see, our primary task for an administration task for a DBA or a SAP admin, right? The backup is taken through Networker, database backups on Networker, and the application backups on a third party. The regular patching and maintenance is as and when needed. The OS patching is done quarterly, as I explained. It is done using the DR window so that we do not take that additional downtime for OS patching. And then we also try to utilize that time to use for doing the SAP kernel patching, for doing the application upgrades which are planned for requirements. So as you saw in our SAP journey, we have had a number of projects that we've executed in the past 5 years. And most of the times we have to do an application upgrade as well. So we are constantly upgrading our systems and keeping them up to the latest versions, including our databases. So the HANA databases are also upgraded as needed. And since we are all on SOX databases, so every 6 months we need to do the password change. So this is again the time that we utilize the DR window that we get. We try to utilize for as many of these activities as possible so as to minimize the total downtime and maximize availability. And for every major project, we ensure that we do a complete load testing. And load testing is done on the pre-production environment. Pre-production environment is also there in the same data center as our production environment, and it has the same configurations or specifications as the production environment. What we do here is we run a load test of quarter end. So typically we have seen our quarter end is the time when we have the maximum load. So we run that for about 2 hours. Then we run double the load of quarter end for another 2 hours. And we also do a longevity test. Now this gives us the confidence that any project that we take through from the dev to prod will be tested in the pre-production environment before it hits production. So any errors or any performance tuning that we need to do, this is the space that we use to do it. And this gives you a little bit more view of the monitoring for SAP. So as you can see, we are using VMware vRealize operations for all the OS level metrics and dashboards. OS level metrics as in the server availability monitoring, the CPU memory usage, the swap monitoring, and even the file system. Then for the database, we have the DBA, the SAP cockpit that we use for all the database level metrics that we monitor. While Solman is used for all our application level monitoring. So we have various templates in Solman that we use, and all the application level monitoring for all SAP systems is done through Solman. So by ensuring that we have the monitoring at the OS, the database, and the application level, we can proactively act on alerts so as to prevent any downtimes in the system and maximize availability. And we have a number of best practices that we wanted to share with you. For this, I'll give it over to Mohammed. Mohammed, over to you.
Thank you, Sarita. So when it comes to SAP implementation, I can break down the best practices in a 3 different area. One is on the hardware portion and network and storage. So when it comes to hardware portion, like it's related to the BIOS settings. Most of them are common thing, like enabling hyper-threading and hardware assisted virtualization feature, which is must needed for to run an ESXi hypervisor. And apart from that, we on the ESXi side, we enable high performance power profile from the ESXi, also the same high performance profile, power profile from the hardware side as well. When it comes to network, most of them are common recommendation, like using a VMX Net 3 adapter for a virtual machine. So VMX Net 3 is a high performance virtual adapter, which is designed to run on virtualization. It provides lower latency and higher bandwidth. And also we make use of jumbo frames for VMware vMotion traffic, and also HANA internode network, like a heartbeat network, not only for SAP system, even for Oracle heartbeat, Oracle RAC heartbeat network. So we make use of jumbo frames for the better performance on that kind of networks. And also when it comes to SAP system, we have monster VMs like with memory of 2 plus terabyte, which is assigned to the virtual machine. So it was taking initially it was taking quite a long time to vMotion the virtual machine because of its huge memory size. So we make use of multiple VM kernel interfaces. So we can make use of that multi vMotion feature as well to reduce the time it takes to migrate the virtual machines, especially when we are performing a maintenance on the ESXi host. And whenever we perform upgrade or especially on firmware upgrades or ESXi patching or upgrades, so we ensure that we run a network performance test and we monitor the bandwidth usage, like to understand like really we don't have any network drops after the system, because we do have an experience like some faulty or bug drivers or firmwares which causes some packet drops. So to avoid our issues to the network performance, so we keep a standard and we perform this network monitoring after every upgrades to ensure our network is clean. And also when it comes to upgrade, whenever you perform on ESXi patching or upgrade, so we also make it mandatory, like perform on firmware upgrades at the hardware level, so ensure that our firmware and driver is all like updated as per the VMware compatibility guide. When it comes to storage, SAP system use multiple disk and huge number of disks. So we make use of para-virtualized SCSI adapter, which is as like same like a VMX Net 3, is a high performance SCSI controller designed to run on the virtualization. And from the storage perspective, tune the device queue depth. So it basically varies, the maximum queue depth varies depend upon the vSphere version which you are using. And also outstanding IO, which defines like how many concurrent IOs can be executed on particular storage device. So this is purely based on your storage vendor recommendation. So nowadays all the storage vendors provides a recommendation for this particular settings. You can consolidate them and configure the settings to get a better disk performance and lower latencies actually. So enable disk UID, it's nothing with performance, but it helps us to, like for the management, especially when you have a system which is having a huge number of disks, like, 20 plus, 25 plus disk attached to the virtual machines. So if you're making any changes to that particular disk, so this disk enabling disk UID will help us to track the disk mapping between virtual machine VMDK and the actual disk which is sitting on the data store. So which helps us to simplify the disk management. So this is especially, we enable these settings for the systems which is having large number of disks. And next is enabling the independent disk for an application and databases VMs, especially which is having a large number of disk, and also the size is huge. So we have SAP systems where some of the VMs are having the disk size is huge, like which is more than 1.5 terabyte or 2 terabyte VMs. So imagine if you are performing an OS level patching, and most of us, we are taking a snapshot before making any changes to the virtual machine. If in case if it goes wrong, we can quickly revert back to the state before what changes we performed, right? So imagine if you are performing OS upgrade, you are taking a snapshot. So by default, if you have a multiple disk which is attached to that virtual machine, so all the disk will be included as part of the snapshot. But for a simple OS level or kernel level patching, why we want to capture that entire disk of that virtual machine, right? And it can also impact the data store size. It can fill up the data store size. To avoid that, when we setting up the virtual machine, so we set the large disk as an independent. So basically, when we take a snapshot of the virtual machine, so that particular the disk which are all huge size, which are all marked as an independent disk, will not be captured as part of snapshot. If something goes wrong with the OS level or kernel level patching, we can just quickly revert the snapshot. So it can only, revert back the changes on that particular operating level, OS level disk actually. And next is like using multi-writer rather than bus sharing. So we have a lot of clustering systems like Oracle RAC systems. So it is using a shared disk. So we recommend to use a multi-writer option. So multi-writer gives a lot of flexibility where we can vMotion the VMs, all this flexibility it provides actually. But when it comes to if we are making use of bus sharing, so it restricts the VM to migrate it to a virtual machine until it gets powered off, right? So these are some of the best practices. So as Sarita told, we implemented on the vSphere and we are 100% virtualized. So we have a lot of benefits of running the SAP system, not only SAP system, the other systems on the vSphere. We talk about some of the key benefits which we are getting it running these workloads on the vSphere. Next slide. Yeah, so these are some of the key benefits and takeaways of running SAP systems on the vSphere. So basically we get a scalability, right? So when we are running these workloads on the virtual machine, so if you want to increase the memory of CPU, so we have a scalability of, we can keep the virtual machine memory up to 6 terabyte and 256 vCPUs. And also we can make these changes on the fly. So comparatively, when you implement these systems on the physical hardware, so the scalability is not so easy without getting the downtime. So one of the key benefits is scalability. And next one is on high availability. So we make use of vSphere HA and DRS, which is a high availability feature, which is part of vSphere. And also for some of the virtual machines, especially a virtual machine with the A1 nodes, which is for the single point of failure. So we protect that virtual machine using vSphere fault tolerance. And also we make use of vRelay's operation and log inside to, proactively monitor the system and capture the alerts proactively before, it can go down on any alerts which can impact the availability of the system. And also we talked about disaster recovery. So we make use of our VMware product like VMware Site Recovery Manager. And also we have a mix match of native database replication technology as well, especially for the SAP system. And other things like simplified operation, especially we have a lot of applications to be used for our employees. And so we don't need to log into each systems individually, right? So we make use of VMware Workspace ONE. So all the applications are published as part of Workspace ONE. So the one-time login, so users can access any application which they are entitled for. So it simplifies the operation of user access and application access. And also we talked about NSX implementation. So we performed on microsegmentation to secure the application to avoid unnecessary traffic to any systems. So we implemented NSX microsegmentation. As part of that, so we set up a rules that this particular systems can only be accessed from standard VMware standard desktop images or secured systems actually. So for that, we make use of VMware Horizon client, and we have a dedicated a desktop pool which is created for SAP system, especially SAP system, where user can only access the SAP systems by logging to that Horizon desktops actually. And also some of the other consideration when running on the vSphere is like, so as we already talked about the scalability, so it provides more scalable when running on the vSphere. So you can see the configuration maximums, like memory, we can run up to 60 terabits for individual virtual machine. It keep increasing based on the vSphere version. So currently we are on vSphere 7. And some of the challenges with large virtual machines like SAP system is like, as I already discussed, it's completely like we have a huge memory which is assigned to the virtual machine. So initially when we started with the SAP system, when we migrate the virtual machine, so we noticed like it is taking more than 20 to 30 minutes to complete the migration of virtual machine. So obviously it can potentially impact the performance of the application system. To avoid the performance impact, so we make use of VM kernel interfaces, the multiple VM kernel interfaces, especially for vMotion, along with the Jumbo Frame, so which reduce the migration time even more than half of the time which we taken earlier. And also when it comes to planning for the growth, obviously just keep monitoring your capacity consumption. So we make use of a vRealize operation to proactively monitor the capacity of our vSphere clusters. If you need additional host addition, or all these things can be captured intelligently from the vSphere operations. And when you plan for an implementation, obviously consider the growth of the systems or any applications for next 3 to 4 years. Consider the plan for the growth in advance actually. So never max out the hardware. This is one of the recommendation, because so it's always keep some additional hardwares or for considering the growth of any virtual machines. So we also have some of the challenges and lessons learned during this HANA implementation. So I'll hand out to Sarita to talk about that. Over to you, Sarita.
Thank you. Thanks, Mohammed. So Mohammed spoke about all the best practices that we utilized and ensured that the systems are stable and running on vSphere. While doing the project implementations, over time, we have seen a number of challenges in HANA and the lessons that we learned. Primarily, we have seen most of these challenges occurring in our EDW, data warehouse architecture, because that is the one which is the most complex. As we saw earlier, the architecture, it has a 5-node HANA cluster. So some of them is what we have listed here as the key lessons that we learned. The first thing is the smart data integration limitation. So in HANA, when we try to do the replication from various sources, we can many sources like Oracle, we have HANA. So whenever there is a limitation in SDI, whenever there is a Oracle source and HANA EDW data warehouse as the target, we have it has to have less than 1 TB of archive log per day. So that was an initial limitation with smart data integration, or SDI, which is a delivered service from SAP. So we did work with SAP, opened a lot of tickets, and it took us some time to get this fixed with the help of SAP. So that is a limitation that we definitely had to work with. Along with that, we figured out that the ad hoc queries from users, now we need to ensure that we give the users the self-service capability or having the ad hoc queries. However, with that, we found that one query could bring down the whole database. Those were some of those issues that we definitely faced as performance issues in the production system. And what we tried to do is have a tuning of the statement memory. We wanted to limit that so as to ensure that the one user or a couple of bad queries are not hogging the entire system. Then for the database hygiene, so there were a couple of things that we did, and in hindsight, we probably could have done that earlier, Now, implementing the SAP HANA archive. Now we use OpenText as a third-party archiving. The reason for doing that is HANA is expensive in terms of licenses and it takes a lot of in-memory, right? So we wouldn't want to utilize that and unless it is absolutely required. So the archiving stage, we can move it out to a third party, which is what we did. The second thing is a design consideration of when to use HANA. So if you have a system which is critical and performance is the key consideration, then most definitely you should be using HANA. However, if the requirement is such that there is only metadata on that database, then any of the open source databases could be used. So that is definitely something to take care of a design consideration. When do we use HANA? Then another chief issue that we faced was the master node scale out. So overloading the master node was something which definitely causes issues and causes the entire HANA system to come down. So whenever we are doing a table restructuring, the important thing to remember is to not load the HANA master node. However, most of the tables should be distributed across the worker node. So that is a fine tuning that we would come to know over time. So it's definitely a work in progress. It is not something which one can do in one shot because all this is a constantly evolving architecture. And of course, HANA data modeling definitely needs to be taken care of as well. Even though we say that, okay, HANA is an in-memory database, there is no tuning required, there definitely is a modeling which needs to be done correctly in order to ensure the maximum performance is obtained from HANA. This gives you a timeline comparison of performing such projects or such large scale projects in a traditional technology versus using VMware technologies. As we demonstrated, we've been quite busy in the past 5 years. We've been doing a number of implementations, adding more and more products into the SAP landscape. We started with the Ascent R1 upgrade. Then we did the EDW HANA, we did SAP BRIM, we did S4 HANA, and a number of smaller projects in between. Now in VMware, we have utilized the VMware technologies and we have effectively used the virtualization platform to gain about 50% of time. So in a traditional technology, any project of this scale would have taken about, say, 2 years or so. I'm talking about the first implementation. At VMware, we did it in 9 months. So the reason why we were able to do each of these projects in about half the time that it takes to do in a traditional technology is because we are using VMware technologies. So this slide gives you a bird's eye view of the operational efficiency that we've been able to obtain using VMware technologies. This is a breakdown of the tasks that you can see. As we said, at VMware, we are 100% virtualized. So all these are on VMs, that all the technology, all the landscape that we have been talking about is on virtualized platform or VM. And the server provisioning is a lot easier because we are doing a VM cloning from the templates. So this brings down my server provisioning from maybe hours or actually days in a traditional technology to minutes. The server provisioning from a template can be done really fast. And that is the reason why we are able to churn up 450 VMs in such a short time. And also about Site Recovery Manager, we did cover a lot of it on the disaster recovery. Now, there is something that I want to talk about more here because as a production support manager, it gives me great confidence that if there is a disaster tomorrow, my team is definitely equipped to ensure that I am able to bring up the systems in the DR site almost immediately, as in within the RTO time that we have promised to business. Now, this is a real DR test that we are able to do every quarter. So each member of my team is equipped to understand and knows exactly what to do if disaster strikes. As a production support manager, that definitely gives me the confidence. And another thing to touch upon here is NSX. Now, NSX we are using for twofold. One is, of course, for the disaster recovery testing, maintenance, etc., but also for micro-segmentation. As we have also talked about in the previous slides, by using micro-segmentation, I'm adding an additional layer of security to my production servers. Now, over and above adding that additional, what it also does is ensures that no non-prod system is connecting to a production system by mistake. So this typically happens whenever we are having to do a refresh or so from production, right? That is a nightmare for every production support manager, that some non-prod will connect to prod and start connecting and using jobs. And that is definitely not possible if you're using a micro-segmentation. And then, of course, the regular features, because we are using vSphere, we have the vMotion, which is a source mode that we would not even come to know of it. So whenever there's any hardware maintenance or upgrade happening, the application definitely is a vMotion that is happening in the backend. And we also talked about the fault tolerance, the single source of failure, which is the ASCS for the SAP servers, is protected by VMware's vSphere fault tolerance. Now, what it gives me the advantage is, if I did not have this, now ASCS would have been a single point of failure. I would need to do some kind of a clustering or some other mechanism, which would be way more expensive. With fault tolerance and high availability, I'm able to achieve the same. So just as a gist of all of this, right? What we wanted to project here is, by using VMware technology, we have been able to do the stuff in half the time and achieve operational efficiency. One more pointer here that I wanted to call out is, we've used VMware technology not just because we are VMware and we have to use it or any of that, but because we have done the evaluation and found out that this definitely works for us. We've been using this technology for over 5 years now in the SAP implementation that went live in May 2016. And we've been seeing that over time, we have been able to successfully maximize the potential of the virtual platform and achieved speed, efficiency, and flawless execution. So we hope our implementation journey has inspired you to start on your own journey with SAP HANA on vSphere or any other implementation that you wish to do. So this slide gives you some of the resources that you can reach out to. This VMware on VMware program, this presentation is brought to you as part of this VMware on VMware program, and that's an initiative, a corporate IT initiative